After your car's had a long winter sleep, you should have yourself a bit of a checklist that you run through just to make sure that things are as you left it and you're not going to have any summer surprises.
Should have bought a Foxbody.
This checklist is key, folks, because if you don't do this, you could find yourself spending the whole summer with tools in your hands and not out enjoying your car. If you go to the extent of taking your wheels and tires off your car, obviously check your brakes, okay? Have a look at the condition of the brake pads. You could repack your wheel bearings if you haven't done those in quite some time. They're really easy to do. I'm gonna actually, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm gonna pull the rotor off. I'll show you the inner workings of the wheel bearing and everything, and repack those bearings. It's a real easy job, like a good Sunday afternoon job if you haven't done them. Check the condition of your front struts. Now, I have a set sitting on the bench that I think I'm just going to replace them while I'm in here, because these are original and the front end of this car is rather bouncy. End links, okay, and the condition of your rubbers, tie rod ends. Check all this stuff out. I do have some other issues. Not sure how well you guys can see this, but these are stock A-arms and stock rubbers and bushings in there. Those are not the best looking. So this probably, I'm gonna guess, explains some of my front end noise I'm getting. It's not a constant noise, it's just a every once in a while, but so much of this car is still original and it spent a lot of time in the southern United States heat. So check the condition of your brake lines, look for cracks. Obviously, leaks are not good. Okay folks, so we got everything tore apart here. Now I realize I did this in high speed. Now for those of you that are here for more of the how-to, stick around to the end and I'll show you how to put all this stuff back together, how to set your wheel bearing properly and the nut, how tight it should be. YouTube's got a funny way of measuring success. For those people that are here just for the entertainment value, they just want to see quick paced stuff and watch the process happen. But for you hardcore how-tos, like I say, stick around and I'll show you how to do all this. If you learn how to put this back together, you'll know exactly how to take it apart. Taking it apart's the easy side of things. But I got the caliper hung. I got to clean it up and splash a little paint on it. I'll get the other side pulled apart before I do any cleaning or painting. I'm going to change this strut out while I got everything tore apart. Tidy this stuff up a little bit. And then I'm going to run my rotors and the dust shield through my blast cabinet. Now, I realize not everyone has a blast cabinet. So if you want to tidy your rotors up, like a wire wheel on the end of a drill or a wire brush, tidy these up. Put some heavy duty tape over here so you're not splashing anything in the bearing races. These dust shields or rotor shields, whatever you want to call them, they always look nice if you buff them up and paint them, especially when you're looking through the wheel and you can kind of just see the outer edge of them. They look good. I like doing them in like a bit of an aluminum color or a cast color. Go. So I've got my rotor all painted up. Now you've probably seen me mask it off and everything. I go to great lengths to make sure that the bearings and the races stay nice and clean. Now, in order to go back on with this rotor, get yourself some good high quality grease. I mean, this stuff's just something I got kicking around. It's a waterproof grease, and you want to just, not in a ridiculous manner, but just lube this up where your front wheel bearings are gonna ride. Now, I guess there's steps within this that I'm kind of leaving out. Now, I've changed the bearings inside of this rotor. I think it was last summer. Anyway, so they're all packed, and there's a pile of grease in there already. If I get one in here in the shop at some point, I'll show you guys how to do that as well. But so anyway, and then I've also got my rotor nice and clean. Okay, so never underestimate the power of being extra clean, especially when it comes to brakes. The last thing you want is like a greasy fingerprint or something on the face of your rotor that contacts your pad. You'll ruin a set of brake pads like instantaneously. So I've already done that. I've already cleaned up both front and back sides of my rotor. So now I'm going to be extra careful not to get my greasy mitts all over this thing. And I'll slide this guy on. Okay, and to be as thorough as possible here, we are going to pack the wheel bearing. So if you're so inclined as to know how to do this, I'm going to give you a quick little tutorial. So get some grease, put it in the palm of your hand, take your bearing, and you want to just start edging grease into the bearing while rotating it. You want to start to see the grease coming out the rollers. All right. Work your way around. Come in from the other side of things. And make sure you got grease in every nook and cranny of this wheel bearing. Okay, so now that you got your wheel bearing all greased up, you want to go ahead and put this guy in place. Okay, tuck him in there. Next is your washer, and you can see your washer's got a little bit of a tang on there. Well, you can't mess that one up. It's got to go right back in there in the slot on the snout. Okay, and now here's where the magic comes in. Now you go to put your nut on, all right? And you want to get this guy on there so he's finger tight. I don't want to give you any bad advice here, but this is the way that I've always done it. It's the way I was taught how to do it years ago. So essentially you want that rotor to spin freely, okay? And you do not want to over tighten this nut. If you do, you put way too much pressure on the bearings within it and you can mess it all up. So I've just kind of given this a little bump, and then I spin it and check it. I'll bump it off. It's kind of a feel thing. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure that everything's seated. Always testing to make sure that you've got everything nice and smooth and sitting where it should. See, that's starting to get a little too tight. The thing to remember is it's not outrageously, you don't need this nut outrageously tight. But you want to make sure it's all seated. Okay, I'm pretty good with that. Now, the castle nut, you got to make sure that your cotter pin's going to line up. And holy smokes, wouldn't you know it, that was bang on. That never happens. Usually you got to pull the castle nut on and off a couple times to get the cotter key or the cotter pin to line up. But run your cotter pin through. Grab yourself a set of needle nose pliers. In this case, I got some with a bit of a 45-degree bend on them. And bend your cotter key around. Okay, so got my dust cap back on. I left that out of the last scene, but something came to mind as I was getting ready to put this brake caliper back on. Each and every time you pull the bolts / pins out of your brake calipers, make sure you lube them back up. Okay, get yourself some brake lubricant, regardless of brand, and just make sure you lube up the sliders on these pins. This is essentially what makes premature, at least one half of your brake pads prematurely wear, other than the other side, is these sliders will seize up and no longer slide. These, if left long enough, can corrode. In this one you can kind of see here's got a little bit of schmeg on her, but it's still, for what it's worth, decent enough. You can replace these pins too if they get really bad, but if you're in wet conditions and or you haven't had these out in a really long time, they could be damaged. So either get yourself some new pins, whatever you do, make sure you lube these sliders up. You have to, or you're going to be replacing one half of your brake pads way sooner than the other. Here's a quick look at the beautification process I went through and the final product with everything bolted up. You can see the new strut in there. Now this is nothing fancy. It's a KYB OEM replacement. Matches the ones that I put on the rear, but way better than the ones that were on it. You can see them over here. I mean, maybe just take my word for it. They were done. Now I hope nobody wanted to see me paint these calipers. I mean, I just scuffed them up with a wire brush and splashed a little paint on them. Painted the outside pad here as well, just to spice things up a little bit. When you're looking at it through the wheel from the outside, I think it'll give it a nicer profile. The inside of this wheel well is quite dirty, and maybe this summer I'll pull a tire off and get in here and tidy it up a little better. Probably around the time I get a new wheel well liner. But I just wanted to give you a quick look here, guys. Now, it's not a bad thing to mention this right now as I go to put this wheel on. One of the things you should do when you go around your car for the first time in the spring is check your torque specs on your wheel nuts, okay? You never know. These things can and will come loose. So run around with a torque wrench real quick. One of those things, better safe than sorry, and make sure your wheel nuts are all still tight and to spec. Right, so now if we weren't in the middle of this differential restoration, I'd pull the car all the way on the hoist and walk you underneath it and show you exactly step by step what I'm going to go through. But I think explaining it to you is probably just as down and dirty. So I go through and I check all of my fluids. Oil, power steering, I check the condition of my coolant. I get underneath, I check my transmission fluid, check the differential, rear diff fluid, right? So just pull your plugs and make sure it's good. You should have a pretty good indication of when you last changed it. So if you need to change it, obviously change it. Tire pressure, this is a big one. I know it's a big one because it's overlooked quite often, but run around and check your tire pressure, especially if your car was not kept in a climate controlled area. Guaranteed your tires are off. Like, you'll have 19 pounds in one, 35 in another. It'll be all over. So check your tire pressure and just spend some time underneath your car, okay? This gets overlooked quite a bit, I think, and I was just talking to my buddy Bill Butler the other day about this. Like, if you spend time just checking things out and have an appreciation for what's going on underneath your car, you will feel that much more confident when you're out in it and God forbid something happens or you hear a noise or whatever. You will have a mind's eye view of what's going on underneath your car and possibly be able to go, oh, it's no big deal, or oh, you know what, I think I know where that's coming from. Quick check, no, we're good, we can get home, whatever. Like, the power of being able to do that is really, really significant, okay? and I think it gets overlooked quite a bit. So just get your car up on some jack stands, get on a creeper or a piece of cardboard, roll under there, and spend some time looking it over and checking it out. Change your oil if need be, right? Some people do it before they park their car, some people do it after, but yeah, just make sure everything's good to go and you're gonna have the most enjoyable season possible. So anyway, I hope this information helped you guys. If it did, please share it along. That's why I do these videos. I love to help the community. So thanks so much for tagging along. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys. Bye for now.